Let's have a look at one of the whiskeys that is highly reviewed. Highland Park 10. Highland Park 10 Scottish whiskey. Let's try this sucker out. Viking scars. Vikings. Apparently they had a history of Vikingism there. So what Vikingism is? Vikingism. No, Vikings. The Vikings came to northern Scotland. They lived there for several, few hundred years, perhaps. The Vikings did not create the whiskey, but there's some heritage there. Moving back. I'm not sure how you get the Viking heritage in a modern alcohol. But one of the interesting things, Highland Park 10. Highland whiskey here, founded in 1798. When we talked about the Old Grandad, that was from the 1800s. I mean, this Highland Park whiskey has a lot more time involved. Heritage is important for flavor. This distillery is on the northernmost part of Scotland. It's a Scottish whiskey distillery, which is the northernmost Scottish. And it's located on the Orkney Islands, off the far north coast of Scotland, where the Atlantic Ocean turns into the North Sea. So, if you're talking about heritage, the Atlantic Ocean next to the North Sea, you certainly would expect to taste the ocean in terms of its character. And I think that's what this will bring to people, is a flavor of that region. The owner is the Ardrington Group. It's operational. It's has 2 wash stills and 2 spirit stills. Capacity is 2,500,000 liters. 2 million liters. It's a lot of literage. I'm surprised that's almost like sucking 2 million liters out of the water there on an island to create this stuff. Wow, that's a lot. It's cast in bourbon and sherry barrels. It's considered by the Whiskey Insiders to be one of the greatest single malt scotches in the world. It has been named the best spirit in the world. There's on 3 separate occasions by F. Paul Passault, America's foremost expert in distilled spirits. Paul Passault. Highland Park has performed well in international spirits ratings in competitions. It's 25-year-old whiskey. You want to get the older ones. They're more expensive. It was the first spirits to ever receive the perfect 100-point score. The Ultimate Spirits Challenge. 100 points. 100. Now, in the United States, they have 111. So this is turning it up a notch to a great extent. Lots of awards. The Light and the Dark was awarded the double gold medal each by the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, and in 2019, and for the 4th year running, Highland Park took home the Ultimate Spirits Challenge top honor in 2019. So fairly recently. We're talking this is right up there. The Chairman's Trophy for the best in category. It was ranked in 2018. It was ranked number 2 behind sister distillery, the Macallan, in the whiskey auction sales, driven by growing demand in the distillery's special releases for whiskey collectors. The Macallan is also one to try. So if you try this Highland Whiskey Park 10, you should also try the Macallan. And we're talking about 40% alcohol here. Single malt Scotch whiskey. Let's try. So we just tried the bourbon, Old Grandad. now we're going to try something much older, and I would suggest, according to the research here, should be much more refined. Although, each one is a different category altogether. Let's try. I don't want to drink too much here. It smells like Scotch. Scottish. But Scotland like. Scotland. What is Scotland like? They're very what's my idea? Is it very sort of now what is okay, if you're talking about any product, you have to think about the area. What is my feeling about the land itself? I consider them close to the ocean, kind of island people. Is Scotland an island? Well, England's an island, and Scotland is just north of England. It's an island. What's my feeling of it? It comes from Scotland, and what is my feeling of Scotland? Scotland, we had a lot of people coming from Scotland to Canada. They basically ran the Canadian government. Now, what's the feeling of the area? Okay, the area is Scotland. It's part of England, separate area. It's on an island. It is an island, part of England. What are the people? The people I have some experience with Scottish people because they arrived to Canada. They formed the bulk of sort of the government workers in the 1950s, 60s. They largely capitalized all the government work in Canada. They formed a very sort of strong. Queen's University has some relationship to the Scottish people who established a university, businesses and university system there. I find them, they're quite competent, I guess, in terms of maybe real estate or insurance or business. Some people say they're cheap. I haven't experienced that at all. I find them, they have a dry sense of humor. They might be sort of witty and cutting. A little bit hard to generalize, of course, but I wouldn't say that they're a warm type of people. They're kind of, I wouldn't say mean. Are they mean people? No. Very hard to generalize, of course, with human beings. I always take a look at the education level. If they're master's degree educated people, regardless of where they're from in the world, I think you'll get some very top, outstanding people. The country itself, the land. What's the land like? Well, of course, you're close to the ocean, so you're thinking sea spray, as well as a beautiful nature, a very harsh environment as well, but a beautiful nature. And so let's try the Highland Park 10. Let's smell. It has a multi-layer, distinct flavors, smells to it. It's, of course, it has the peat smell, as well as the general feeling of the area. I would say that that's as close as I can get, not having been there. Flavors, hard for me to pick out different smells. It has obviously fruity flavors, fruity smells in there, plus a slight bit of smoke. Wow, that is really smooth compared to the Granddad, Old Granddad. That is, the Highland Park 10 has a very smooth flavor, and it has just a little bit of smoke coming in the back. It smells like the moss is on a rock next to an ocean. That's really what it smells like. I don't taste all the flavors that most people do. Most of the experts in the more developed palates they can taste all sorts of different flavors in there. The best way I can describe it is you have to be by the ocean, have to live by the ocean to be able to identify this type of flavor. And it's hard to describe. The best way I can describe it is wood in the ocean spray on a rock with some lichen on the rock, as well as perhaps some seaweed. And it really does give me, of course, the surprising thing about it is how toned down it is. It doesn't hurt the mouth at all. A cabin near the ocean on a beautiful rock with sea spray and some grasses there. I think to try this in the habitat there would be incredible. That's exceptional output of effort. If you think that all it is ethyl alcohol, which is tasteless, but then they're able to add the flavors to it to balance all the different flavors. Definitely try it. Give it a try. What's interesting about Highland Park 10? The history. Highland Park Distillery was founded by Magnus Unsen. He was a butcher and a church officer by day, an illicit distiller and whiskey smuggler by night. In 1798, he was caught illegally distilling whiskey on the site. In 1826, nearly 30 years later, Highland Park received an official license to distill whiskey. So it has a very colorful history. Illicit whiskey. The name of the distillery does not refer to the area of Scotland known as the Highlands, but rather to the faction that the distillery is founded on, an area called High Park, distinguished from a low area nearby. And how much production? They have enormous production. Here's an interesting fact. The absence of trees and the peat the distillery burns to smoke its hand-malted barley is densely compacted heather dating back 4,000 to 9,000 years. This peat burns slowly, delivering the distinctive aroma and smoke the distillery is known for. Temperate weather. Although rainy and windy, the island of Orkney was blessed with the surprising temperate climate, providing the perfect environment for whiskey casks to quietly mature at an even pace. Without being exposed to the extremes in temperature. Nice, calm place to do distillery. Sherry seasoned oak casks, between 60 and 80% of all the whiskey's flavor comes from the cask in which it matures. 60 to 80% comes just from the cask, which means that you don't really need to have you could actually get the alcohol from another place, ship it up there, have it sit in the barrels because of its temperature, and you'd be fine with that form of maturing. So in other words, is there something special about the place? I think it's mainly in the mind. Highland Park uses casks made of either American or European oak. These are built by hand in Spain and filled with Oloroso sherry and left to season for 2 years. So 2 years they season the barrels and then they ship them on the ship. They go up to Scotland. The casks are then emptied and sent to Orkney, where they're filled with new make spirits and left mature for at least a decade. 10 years. Waiting. They're just waiting for 10 years. When's the whiskey done, honey? For the Up to 5 decades in case of the Highland Park 50-year-old. Who wants to try the Highland Park 50? Can I get that online by the ounce? Let's try and get the Highland Park 50 one day. One day. What other the basic process here? It's similar to other distilleries. Where there's a unique key. There's something unique. There's some key difference that makes Highland Park unique. What's the uniqueness? Well, it's exposed to the elements and pounded relentlessly by gale-force winds. Few trees survive work these harsh conditions. In the absence of trees, which we talked about before. Character. It's got a unique flavor profile that no other whiskey has. Well, I guess because it's from a different place, so there's no other place than that place. The signature sherry seasoned oak casks deliver big, rich flavors. The heathery peat adds a layer of aromatic smoke. So all they're doing really is using sherry casks and then adding some smoke flavor to it. That's really all there is. And for my distinction here, I can taste the smoke layer coming after a sort of initial fruity type of balanced flavor, and other than that, I have troubles picking out the individual fruits that some people can do. Fruits, leather, barnyard. But definitely smooth. I would definitely try that Viking Scars Highland Park whiskey again. Hopefully that's given you some idea of what it's like to experience this type of whiskey.